question.
That had to be it. That had to be it.
It was too much to handle.
Oh, yeah.
Let's talk about what was too much here, because storms hammered the heartland. So we'll talk about that. Nebraska, lucky for you, the severe weather has shifted a bit farther east, or that main risk. Anyways, taking a look at our power outage tracker, you can see the outages that we have across the U.S. Over 290,000 customers right now, so you know that's even more people. You can see them certainly centered here across the Central Plains over into Missouri as well. Nebraska right now leading the way with 183,000 customers without power. And as we just saw on that map that Jim was showing us, it's going to be hot across that part of the country. So people are sweating it out without that AC. Hopefully we can get that fixed pretty quickly. Look at all of our storm reports as these storms blasted through. The red ones, a tornado report, lots of hail, lots of wind reports coming along with this as well, and lots of rain. You can see a large swath of at least 3 to 5 inches here as those storms moved through. Just a moisture-laden atmosphere for those storms to work with. Still having a lot of lightning with these storms as they're moving eastward through Illinois right now. Heavy rain as well. You can see that here. That's what you're going to be dealing with as you head out on the road. So maybe just keep an eye on this complex, although I will say kind of get that one, and then we're going to have more behind it. So this isn't a one and done type of day for this region. You're going to have pulses of energy continuing. You can see one of our lows here. You can see abundant moisture to work with as well once again. So these storms are going to tap into that. That could lead to some flash flood issues. That could lead to a tough commute, right? Because when it's raining that hard, you can't really see what you're doing. And you can see that heavy rain is still tapping into all that precipitable water that we have, which is what makes it humid, what makes it feel like a sauna out there. Well, that is also what allows us to get that heavy rain. Plenty of available energy still hanging around as well. We didn't see that really wane a whole lot during the overnight, maybe not as high as it was peak day, but we still have energy for those storms to work with. So here's the setup. We've got our jet stream displaced off to the north by that strong area of high pressure, and we're watching those pulses of energy kind of ride along that. So we're getting that risk for severe storms for cities like Chicago, Indianapolis, Louisville. All of you are included in that today with the gusty winds, the damaging hail, and then also that possibility for an isolated tornado. Reynolds, as I mentioned, we're going to have a couple different rounds of this today and into tonight that we have to keep an eye on.
Heck yeah, we are.
It's like it's 98 degrees. So maybe I'm not talking about the boy band, although that's exactly where my head went. Maybe you want it to rain. Maybe you would like a little reprieve from the heat. We've got a heat advisory today. I think we'll have a few hit or miss storms today. You're not getting heat like that without a hit or miss storm across Miami. But Friday, Saturday, Sunday, we certainly start to see that chance for more quantity of storms, for more covering, and then also for heavier rain. So we're looking at the European model. What you're looking at is the atmospheric moisture. So where you're seeing these reds and deep oranges, that is that plume of atmospheric moisture. We're talking about dew points in the upper 70s and 80s. That is continuing. Here's the European model putting up just a plume of moisture. So as Jim was just showing you, the European model does not have really a robust system or much of a system at all, but it still has that envelope of tropical moisture, which is going to mean rounds of heavy rain and localized flooding. Watch the American model now. Same thing. Plume of tropical moisture just directed across Florida, up into the Panhandle as well. The American model a little bit more bullish with maybe creating something, but regardless, both of them have that deep tropical moisture that could result in some flooding. So here's a look at Saturday. You can see those storms around, heavy rain, that possibility for flash flooding for much of peninsular Florida. And then we're going to continue that into Sunday. More rounds of rain, especially those areas that don't drain very well. You know those areas that I'm talking about in Miami, in Fort Lauderdale, in West Palm as well. Those are going to see that possibility for some flash flooding. And then you'll watch as we head into Sunday and we see a better chance for some flash flooding for cities like Tampa and Apalachicola. Of course, Jim, this is all going to be kind of dependent on what ends up happening with that system in terms of severity, but regardless, we're going to expect some flooding.
Yeah, I mean, like you showed, deep moisture plume regardless.
Thanks for staying with us on America's Morning Headquarters. Can you believe it, guys? It's the first day of August. It's like, where did this whole year go, right? Kids are starting school. It's crazy. Heading through summer. Meanwhile, robust storms tearing through the Cornhusker State on Wednesday. Check out this time lapse. Look at that. See that heavy rain moving in. Look at those skies. Man, that is a dynamic atmosphere that we're looking at. That was in Ashland, Nebraska, about 30 miles southwest of Omaha. It's where the Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium is partially closed today because of damage. More than 175,000 customers are still without power in Nebraska this morning. The problem with that, Reynolds, is it's going to be really hot today, and that's the last thing you want to be dealing with, power outages when it's so hot, not to mention all the cleanup because so many trees were downed as these storms moved.
Yeah, no doubt about it. It's going to be very...
Reynolds,
okay, we make it happen. Sure.
Reynolds just has a way of narration and telling the story. All right, I'm going to tell you the travel story because some of us are going to be maybe slowing down, turning on your favorite podcast narrator or audiobook narrator because it's going to be slow go. I always, when I'm driving through rain and I need to go slower, I put on a podcast or an audiobook because you don't want to be listening to some like thumping, raging music while you're driving. It just makes you go faster, or it makes me go faster anyways. All right, so Peoria, you've got those storms moving through. You can see this system. We've got this kind of circulation center of low pressure there spinning over Minnesota. All of this is going to continue rotating through a couple different pulses of energy is what we're going to watch, and that is going to bring us the risk for severe storms today. Damaging wind gusts, large hail, isolated tornado can't be ruled out. Very heavy rain. The atmosphere is primed with plenty of moisture to cause some localized flooding for cities like Indianapolis, Columbus, Louisville, St. Louis. You're all included in that. So let's time it out for you in Chicago. We've got some rain around there south of the city around Gary to start out. By lunchtime, you've got some of those storms moving in. Sporadic in nature, but they will be around. It's really heading into your afternoon commute that we see that better chance for more widespread storms. As I mentioned, some of those storms could reach severe limits. The damaging winds, the very, very heavy rain, not at all what you want to be dealing with there in the Windy City for your afternoon commute. Also expecting maybe some airport delays everywhere that you see the gold circles here. So major hubs impacted once again today, all across NYC down through Baltimore, Washington D.C. back through Buffalo, Syracuse again today. That possibility for some airport delays, weather related. Saturday, same thing. So we are dealing with that possibility for those weather related delays, whether you're traveling today, Friday, or Saturday. When you have those storms moving through Reynolds, it's not always about how the weather is where you are, but maybe where your plane is coming from or where you're trying to go.
Boy, isn't that the truth? Hey.
That's not true. So let's talk about it. Some of us have other things to worry about other than the rain and the storms that we're going to have today, and that is the fact that you might be without power. Those storms wreaked havoc as they moved through last night with those winds. So you can see right now, Nebraska, we're at 179,000 customers without power. Kansas following behind that with Missouri. So we're at 281 or over 281 customers across the country right now without any power. And here's the problem there. It is going to be stifling hot today. So when you don't have power, it's that hot. Probably trying to get out there and clean up some tree damage, because when you're talking about 92-mile-per-hour gusts in Denton and Hillhead, South Dakota, and 90-mile-per-hour gusts there in Omaha, tons of trees are down, tons of debris. So you got the cleaning up going on. You've got the power outages. Who knows when that power will be back on? And then we're going to throw in some of that hail. Jim was just talking about it. Softball size hail, when you're talking about 4 inches, that is a massive chunk of very hard ice flying down out of the sky. That is dangerous. That's going to do some damage, and that's what we saw. 5 inches on one of those reports. So just storms absolutely meaning business. Very strong, robust, buoyant atmosphere that those storms had to work with, and a very moist atmosphere that left behind a trail of lots of rain and some flooding as well. That yellow indicative of 3 to 5 inches of rain from some of those reports. And we're watching this cluster of storms now move eastward across central Illinois. Got a little bit of lightning with that. Some lightning right now moving through northern Kentucky. This is kind of a good depiction of what we're going to be dealing with later today. A couple different areas of storminess. That is what we're going to be watching. The heavy rain as well. You can see it here. We've got kind of our bowling ball spinning around. You've got that low that's kind of diving its way through Minnesota right now. Plentiful atmospheric moisture as we're looking at the water vapor imagery, and that tells me we're going to have some heavy rain coming along with this. Precipitable water values very, very high for places like St. Louis. Maybe it's not raining there, but you walk out the door in St. Louis and you're like, ugh, this air, it feels like I'm in a sauna. And that's because you have so much moisture in the air. And that is what's going to help give us some heavy rain later on as well. Still plenty of moisture, energy and moisture, but energy is what we're looking at here for those storms to work with as they continue to move eastward. Following that northern tier of that jet stream that we've got displaced off around the Great Lakes. So you've got that dome of high pressure, that dome of heat, and then we've got some storms around the top of that. Today, that risk for severe storms for cities like Chicago, Indianapolis, Louisville. With these storms moving through today into tonight, damaging wind gusts possible, heavy rain, some large hail, and an isolated tornado can't be ruled out. You'll see places like Louisville, like Charleston, like Indianapolis, Reynolds, they get a couple different rounds of storms and then another overnight round that we have to watch that's going to move through Kentucky into Tennessee.
Heck yeah, they will.
Difference, we're going to add even more tropical moisture in there as well. So let's talk about it. Jim kind of just broke it down for you in terms of what the models might want to do with this wave. I want to show you some of that tropical moisture that we're talking about. So regardless of what this wave does, you'll understand that we're going to have some heavy rain, some very heavy rain possible with this. Just a moisture-laden atmosphere is going to be the story heading especially into this weekend and early next week. So here's the European model. You see what's happening here. It's bringing that influx of tropical moisture all across Florida, up into the Panhandle, across portions of even southern Georgia, getting an increase in moisture from this kind of envelope of tropical moisture that is lifting northward. Here's the American model, and you'll notice it's kind of getting the act of the system together a little bit more, but regardless, it is still bringing this deep plume of tropical moisture. So that is what I want you to prepare for. And as Jim just mentioned, this system, maybe some of the models looping it back around, maybe slow moving and stalling. We still don't know what it's going to do, but we know it's going to increase our rain, and that is what you should prepare for. We've got those storms all across the state on Saturday, that possibility for some flash flooding. We're going to do that once again on Sunday, especially on Sunday. You see it here. This is the time of year, it's our rainy season. We expect to get rain, but this isn't going to be your afternoon sea breeze driven storms. This is going to be more of a maybe all day event where you're getting rounds and rounds of those showers and storms. So that possibility for flash flooding right now focused along the west coast of Florida, up around the Big Bend area on Sunday. Monday, we're keeping that rain and storm chance in the forecast as well. More flash flooding, Jim. And then this is on a lot of areas that are above average in terms of rainfall across South Florida and especially Southwest Florida.
Yeah, everybody but Vero Beach, right?
Yeah, right.
They're almost a foot down.
Thanks for staying with us on America's Morning Headquarters. Can you guys believe it? It's the first day of August. In case you didn't know, we're in August now. And for some of us, man, it has been a stormy overnight start rolling into August. Robust storms tearing through the Cornhusker State on Wednesday. Take a look at this time lapse here. This was from a camera in Ashland, Nebraska. Look, this is like the waves of rain that you're seeing. This is the rain that you're in and you just can't see what you're doing. Now, about 30 miles southwest of Omaha, that is where the Henry Dorley Zoo Aquarium is partially closed today because of damage. More than 170,000 customers are still without power in Nebraska this morning. And when you look at this, you can clearly see why. Those winds meant business, Reynolds, as they were sweeping through. A lot of people are going to be dealing with heat today with those power outages as well. Get those storms to bubble up. Now, when you're talking about heat, feeling like triple digits, maybe you want some showers, a little shower action, but not a storm action. And sometimes you can't get those two apart from each other. So here's the setup. We've got strong high pressure hanging out, and that is helping to keep that heat around. But then also you can see the northern edge of that heat fuel some of those storms, those disturbances following that jet stream, pulses of energy helping us to get those storms to bubble up. So for tomorrow, we've got that possibility, wide, huge area where you could see an isolated severe storm. We're stretching that all the way from Louisville to the East Coast down into Raleigh, Charleston, South Carolina included in that. Also a very large swath of where we could see some flash flooding possible. You'll notice this bullseye here across southern portions of Ohio, much of Kentucky, getting down into the extreme western portions of North Carolina there as well. We've been pretty wet. We're going to add more rain onto that, and the atmosphere has a bunch of moisture to work with, so that is going to lend itself to possibly some flash flooding. You can see heading into our afternoon on Friday, we've got just scattered storms across the map. You can see those storms kind of rotating through Reynolds. We start to get a break early Saturday, though, but Friday, a lot of us are going to be dodging those storms.
Yes, indeed.
Everyone who was impacted is kind of starting to get on the upswing. Maybe you're cleaning up some of that debris. Hopefully soon we'll start to see these power outage numbers come down in a big way. But for right now, we just dropped under 270,000 customers with power outages. We're at 269 just over now. Nebraska, 173,000, still leading the way in terms of those power outages. Kansas and Missouri following close after. And we're still going to be hot around this region. Maybe not as hot as you have been, but we've still got those temperatures up in the lower 90s. And with no AC, that is getting really uncomfortable. Here's the reason we're having some of those power outages. Look at these wind gusts. We're talking about 92-mile-per-hour gust in Denton, Nebraska, Hillhead, South Dakota. That's 92-mile-per-hour gust. And then in Omaha, where we saw a ton of trees come down. This really did a number on that tree canopy there in Omaha, 90-mile-per-hour wind gusts. And then we're going to add in the hail. So if you weren't getting the damage from the wind gusts, I hope you weren't caught out in this, because in Chokio, Minnesota, a 5-inch hailstone reported. That is cracking your windshield. If you happen to be unlucky enough that that hailstone came down and hit you in the head, that is going to be a really rough day. That is going to be something that's very dangerous. So that's why we're saying when you get these severe thunderstorm warnings, you want to make sure that you are safe and inside. Lots of rain with this as well. The atmosphere is primed with moisture, and it was, and that left a large swath of 3 to 5 inches of rain in a really short period of time. You know, when you're talking about the rain that you would get for the entire month in what, a 24-hour period, it's going to cause you some issues. Watching this complex of storms that's been migrating its way eastward across central Illinois all morning. It's got quite a bit of lightning with it. So if you're here in eastern portions of Illinois, I'd wait for it to pass. Some heavy rain as well. It's moving pretty quickly, so it'll be out of your way. But you don't want to be out in the heavy rain and the lightning if you can avoid it. Here's our center of low pressure. You see it there? See it spinning? Plenty of moisture to work with as well, showing up on our mid-level water vapor. So that tells me that not only do the storms have quite a bit of moisture to work with, but they also have plenty of energy still hanging around there across eastern portions of Missouri, southern Illinois. So we'll watch as these disturbances kind of crawl along the jet stream, bringing us that risk for severe storms today for cities like Chicago, Indianapolis, Louisville. You're included in that. A couple different rounds as well. So we'll get our first round out. Indianapolis, Louisville, you can see those storms moving through, and you might be like, okay, we're done. But we are not, actually. Watch what happens heading into the overnight hours. We watch this taking shape and diving southeastern. We still have places like Chicago. I think Chicago, you're going to have a hard time today with some of those flight delays as well. Detroit over into Pittsburgh as those storms move through. So Reynolds, it's going to be one of those days where cross your fingers if you're traveling. Cross your fingers just in general with this severe risk moving through.
Oh, for some, it's
really early, I would say, even though it's still humid. You got a heat advisory going into effect later this morning. It is going to be dangerously hot later. Let's talk about what this is going to mean regardless of development. So Jim just broke down kind of all those possibilities and what we're watching, but regardless of where it ends up tracking, we've got an envelope basically of tropical moisture that the models are in agreement about. So here's the European model. Here's our tropical moisture. You can see it. Look at that plume. This is the atmospheric moisture, and the oranges and the reds represented here. That is that deep tropical moisture that's going to enhance that heavy rainfall, enhance our rainfall chances as well. So here's the European model on Sunday. Plume of moisture just absolutely covering Florida. Now we're going to look at the American model for the atmospheric moisture. So two different long-range models kind of have the inputs a little different, how they have their outputs a little bit different. So they're both kind of trying to latch onto that wave and decide what they want to do with it. The American model is wanting to, as you can see, kind of develop it a little bit more, but still continue to put that deep tropical moisture, not just across Florida, but South Georgia, South Carolina. So I'd say across the southeast, the Gulf Coast, watch this very closely. Storms in the forecast for your weekend across Florida. Possibility for flash flooding for places like Orlando, Fort Myers heading into Sunday. Again, those storms, and it's not going to be your typical sea breeze storms. It's going to be more like maybe rounds and rounds and rounds of rain and storms. Flash flooding possible from the Big Bend area all the way down into Southwest Florida, which of course we don't want to see any more rain. Fort Myers is more than 15 inches above average in terms of rainfall so far this year. So adding more onto that would just be even more of a mess for them, Jim.
Stalling system means that those probabilities.
Summer is typically peak time for wildfires, but they can happen any time of the year. We partnered with T-Mobile to bring you the science behind how wildfires begin so that you can be prepared. Meteorologist Alex Wilson has more. Thanks for staying with us on America's Morning Headquarters. Can you guys believe it? It is the first day of August. Where has the year gone? Some of us were bringing in the first day of August with robust storms. They were tearing through the Cornhusker State yesterday. Check out this time lapse from a camera in Ashland, Nebraska. Just look at that. You're talking about sheets of rain. Look at the darkness in the sky there, that steady wall of rain that's moving through. It's about 30 miles southwest of Omaha, where the Henry Dorley Zoo and Aquarium is partially closed today because of damage. More than 160,000 customers are still without power in Nebraska this morning. And when you look at a video like this, you can clearly see why those winds meant business. Not just that, but the hail that we saw, Jim, or Reynolds, it was a mess out there. And then, of course, we're not done with the severe threat today, but at least it's moving east. So those who dealt with it yesterday won't have to deal with it today.
Absolutely. One great point that you brought.
Well, the Aurora Borealis beaming bright in some parts of the U.S. Meanwhile, we're standing on Mars right now.
Yes.
As geomagnetic storm watches are actually in place through today. But besides solar flares and the northern lights, there's also been a most unexpected discovery on Mars, and it wasn't Jim Cantori.
And And who better to explain that to us and what we're seeing here than astrophysicist at the Stony Brook University and Flatiron Institute in New York City, our good friend Dr. Paul Sutter. Doc, an aside here, I'm still waiting for the dry cleaning bill from the milk bath I gave you in Indianapolis, but we'll talk about that later. Okay, buddy. Always great to see you. What is going on Mars?
Yes, so the Curiosity rover, which has been
awesome information. And Doc, you explained it so well. Thank you so much. Dr. Paul Sutter, astrophysicist at Stony Brook University and the Flatiron Institute in New York City. Just awesome.
I mean, what I heard was lots of potential, maybe.
Right?
All right,
Potential.
Reynolds, potential for...